30. I would not be over fussy, but we do have remote participants, and I think they're waiting behind their computers, and they would like to get started. Well, I'm Marcus Kilmer. I'm Vice President for Public Policy at ISOC, and I suggest we introduce, as we do every time, sort of a tour de table, where everybody has the opportunity to introduce himself or herself. But before we start doing that, I think I would like to give the floor to Jacek, who has a few administrative and organizational remarks, please.
Good evening. My name is Jacek Gajewski. I am Chapter Development Manager, and in this moment a secretary to Marcus, trying to help him in this today's speech. I will be passing a list of attendance, asking you to put your name and your chapter or country and email and telephone to the list and pass it further around the table. Also, let me remind you that this meeting is both live streamed and captioned. So de facto, we will be using WebEx only in case you want to tell us something, to pose a question to the presenter. In that sense, I ask you to mute your microphones wherever you are in the world. Also, those here who are in the room should rather refrain from using WebEx. There is now extra information coming in. And also, don't switch the video, since we are connecting to several countries where the bandwidth is rather a scarce resource. So we will remain in WebEx only with the audio stream and the chat window. Let me also then tell you that remotely we have already several participants, namely Mr. Abzedin Adamov from Azerbaijan, Daniel Nangaka from Uganda, Alex Longhair from New York, Mazoe Anderson from Liberia, Vinay Chandran from India, Bangalore. As usually, many, many thanks to Jolly McPhee for all the recording from New York. And there is one other person there who is taking our captions. So with this, I finished this small introduction of myself and remote participants, and pass the list and give the floor back to Marcus.
Thank you, Jacek. I would maybe like to start. Kevin, maybe can you introduce the remote participants? We have quite a few, I think, who are on the list, and I think they deserve to be recognized. But before doing the introductory round, I would also like to raise a question. We traditionally have two meetings at ICANN meetings. The first one is ISOC at ICANN, and the second one is a separate chapter meeting. And I think it was Benny who brought up the question, is it really necessary to have two meetings? Could we not collapse them into one, as people are usually very busy? I don't suggest discussing this now. I would just like to raise the question. We can also discuss it at the chapters meeting and take it off list. And when preparing for the next meeting in Toronto, either we carry on with two meetings, or we have then maybe one meeting in two parts, or whatever. But I would just like to raise the issue, and please think about. Many of you will also be attending the chapter meeting on Tuesday, so this is maybe then it's an opportunity to have a first discussion. But let's now move to the introduction, and I turn to you, Walter. Well, everybody knows Walter, but nevertheless, introduce yourself.
Thank you, and particularly for those who are calling in. I'm Walter Roseman, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Internet Society, and welcome here to everyone, particularly those who hear voices but can't see us and don't know what a wonderful dinner we're having here. I would suggest you go and you get something for yourself so that you feel as warm and well-fed as we do. Thank you, Marcus, also for raising the question of the two meetings. We want to do what you want to do. The focus of the meetings is not at this point the same, but certainly there's tremendous overlap in who attends the two meetings. So I think it is a good idea to put this, at least for a little while, on the Tuesday night meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Walter. And we have from a newly constituted chapter, Alex, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alexey Sozonov, Alex in short, and I'm representing ISOC Russia, which is information now. We have some updates, and I will announce our updates later. Thank you. It's my first time here, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
We're happy to have you here. Frederick?
Thank you, Marcus. Hello, and I'm too happy to have you here this evening. My name is Frederick Donk, and I'm the director of the European Regional Bureau of the Internet Society based in Brussels. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Victor Ndona. I'm the Secretary General of ISOC Cameroon chapter from Cameroon. Happy to be here. Thank you.
My name is Yaovi Atoun. I'm from the Benin chapter of Internet Society. This is my first participation in this meeting. I used to be in the chapter meeting, the second meeting. So this is my first participation in this one. So it's from today I'll know what is this meeting, and if I have to give an opinion later, I'll know what to say. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barak Otieno, the chairperson of the Internet Society Kenya chapter. I'm happy to be here.
Good evening. I am Aziz Ilali. I am the chair of Moroccan chapter.
Good evening. My name is Michel Chono of chapter Cameroon. I'm happy to be here again after Costa Rica.
Okay, good evening. My name is Tomohiro Fujisaki from Japan chapter. Actually, Japan chapter is now under rejuvenating, but I hope Japan chapter will be a formal chapter soon. Thank you.
I'm Oscar Robles, member of the ISOC Mexico.
Alejandro Pisanti, chair of ISOC Mexico as well.
Sébastien Bachelet, member of various chapters, but French one also.
Sylwia Rudnik. I represent here a chapter in Poland, the ISOC chapter in Poland. We were established in the year of 2000. I'm really happy to be here.
I didn't hear Alejandro Pisanti, so I was like, which means I was too, this is Veni Markowski, I was too engaged into looking at the wonderful food and drinks that the Internet Society has provided, and I'm extremely happy to note that after about 18 years of arguing with ISOC, I can finally say some good words about them. And for those of you who are online, really, this is an amazing change in ISOC, I have to tell you. Last time, and every time before that, these were plain sandwiches, ham and cheese. And tonight we have hot soup and salads and bar and buffet and red wine and white wine, vodka, whiskey, bourbon. It's and since you mentioned Jolly online, I have to tell you that he's gonna suffer tonight because the England is playing against Italy. So we have to finish here by 8:45 so that he can watch the game.
Jolie will do that for you.
Yrjö Länsipuro, Vice Chair of ISOC Finland, and I also welcome the culinary improvements. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Kevin, can you maybe quickly introduce who's participating remotely? Oh, you do that. Okay. Jacek, please.
I already did it, but there is one more, and this is Fatima Cambronero from Argentina. We welcome Fatima.
Okay.
So we have something like 7, 8 remote participants, and we hope for more to join.
Okay, thank you all, and it's great to see some pillars of the Internet Society who've been with us for many, many years, and also some newcomers, new chapters. It's great to see the rejuvenation, and great to have you all here. Now, the question, what is the difference between the two meetings? Basically, the ISOC and ICANN meeting is supposed to discuss ICANN issues. We have, sorry?
Supposed to discuss them and get ourselves organized.
Get ourselves organized. Thank you, Alejandro. It's always good to lean or stand on the shoulders of giants and learn from them, from the past experience. But so, yes, okay, we're here to discuss ICANN. We have not actually set an agenda, so please, it's agenda bashing in first agenda item. Alejandro, Sebastian, please.
I would like to. No, this will be more for the chapters meeting, but I would like to signal issues related to the IGF dynamic coalitions, and for this ICANN meeting, I would signal the stability and security review and the forthcoming actions of ICANN for stability and security for today's agenda, if possible. And unfortunately, I will have to leave at the same time as the football people, but for another thing.
Thank you. Sebastian?
Mexico not playing tonight. Yeah, the idea when for the creation of this.
Is this an agenda?
Well, the idea is it's agenda bashing. So please, I mean, you announced stability and security, which is a very clearly defined agenda item. Other issues people would like to discuss. So please, Sebastian.
I wanted just to stress why this meeting was organized. It was not just to organize ourselves, but it was also to be able to share the concern and the knowledge from each of us, because we are part of different constituency within ICANN, or participate to different part of the organization. And when it was created, I was at large. Alessandro was a board member, and Veni also, if I remember well. And it was very useful to have this exchange, and it was the reason for. And I hope that it could be still the same here. But it's not the case.
We should leave this for the. We have certainly an agenda point about whether holding or not the two meetings, and we could discuss this there.
So, no, I mean, there's definitely merit in having this kind of meeting. I mean, the question I raised is, do we need to have a separate meeting for this, or can we not do it in one meeting, as was Veni's point? But Veni, you also asked for the floor.
Well, two things. Obviously, on the question about the meetings, I've stated it on the mailing list, but on the agenda, I think one of the ways ISOC chapters can be helpful to ICANN and to the model is to address an issue which becomes, actually, I think it becomes more and more an issue, which is the NOMCOM is trying to find people to fill in a number of spaces every year. And we could use ISOC chapter resources to actually spread the word, but also to ask people to just send their application, if they're interested, because every once in a while there is the situation where there is not enough choice. Mm-hmm. And there is not enough choice just because people haven't heard about it. We know that ICANN's work is time-consuming, and people have to allocate a lot of efforts to read mails, to read documents, etc. But at the same time, they complain if something is not going the way they think it should be going. So that's my suggestion for the agenda.
Thank you. Well, that's a very practical and hands-down suggestion. Are there other suggestions? Yes, please, Barak.
Yeah, just a comment. I hope it's appropriate. I think the meetings should be separate because there are a lot of issues within ICANN that we need to focus on. In particular, I want to highlight one issue that is more on our continent, that is Africa. A number of, if you look at the new GTLDs list, there was a very low registration from our continent, and for us it's a challenge. ISOC has been doing a lot of awareness on IP version 6 and other issues, and I think that's one area we can come in with the support of other chapters. And then we can retain the chapter meetings to discuss our in-house issues, because not all chapters are at the same level.
Thank you for that. No, I mean, as I said, nobody questions the merit of having this kind of meeting. The question is more an organizational one. Can we not collapse it into two? Have a first part of the, the ISOC meeting during the ICANN week devoted to ICANN issues, and the second half devoted to chapter issues. I'm open, whatever suits you best, we will follow. But there's clearly merit in discussing ICANN issues, and thank you for basically your agenda item, which I thought would be the first agenda item people would bring up, the new GTLDs and how we react to that. But Irio, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Markus. First of all, I would like to support Veni's suggestion that ISOC chapters would actively try to find candidates for ICANN positions. I'm a member of the nominating committee this year for Europe, ALAC, at large Europe, and I can agree that we could do with a few more candidates from various areas of the world. The other thing I don't know if we need to discuss that, but just an observation that that some ISOC chapters are also at-large structures in the country. That's the case of Finland, for instance, where ISOC Finland is also an ALS of at-large of ICANN, and in some cases that is not a case. I just wonder, I mean, whether that's an issue that could be discussed. Whether, for instance, being part, I mean, having more ISOC chapters actually as ALSs could increase ISOC's influence. Thank you.
Thank you. This particular issue has come up before, and I think there was sort of a general sense that we should keep the thing separate. There's clearly a cross-fertilization of the two. But before we pass the floor, the word back to Alejandro, there's Jolly. He has a suggestion for an agenda item. Does he want to speak, or does he have it in writing?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, I'd like to have an update on the IANA contract and what's going on with that.
Okay, thank you. Alejandro?
Thank you, Marcus. I don't know, Marcus, if you have a prepared agenda besides the issues that we have added. If you are going to, if you are planning to speak about the GTLDs, which seems to me a very important subject for this meeting, I would like for us, if you find it appropriate, to have a brief discussion about conflict of interest related to ISOC's proposals or not ISOC proposals, but to PIR's GTLD proposals? What are the boundaries that creates for the headquarters, trustees, chapter delegates, and members in general? I think they are different.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think by now we have quite a good agenda. There are, hello Sivas, yes please also introduce yourself for the remote participants.
Okay, I'm Siva Subramanian, President of ISOC India, Chennai. One of the agenda items I would propose is that ISOC chapters could play a role in defending ICANN in their regions. ICANN is subject to quite a lot of unfair criticism in the recent past, and as we are participants quite educated about the ICANN process and who know about ICANN, we could discuss if it's proper for ISOC chapters to reach out to the communities and present ICANN in the proper perspective.
Okay, thank you. This agenda item seems to me to fit more into the chapter meeting. You know, the role of chapters, obviously it is very important, and we count on you guys in defending the internet model, the internet ecosystem, and of course that includes ICANN, but this is more of a, I think, of a chapter issue, and I would suggest putting this agenda item, which is an important agenda item, on the agenda of Tuesday's meeting. But as I said, I think we do have a full agenda for tonight, and I also noticed Olga has joined us. Yes, oh please, microphone and introduce just
Hi.
for the remote participants.
Hello everyone, and hello remote friends. My name is Olga Cavalli. I'm the secretary of the chapter of Argentina, and here is my colleague Adrian. He's our treasurer, so he's the guy with the money.
Welcome to you both. Okay, if there are no new additions or burning additions for the agenda, then I would suggest we get started. And I think I would, as the new GTLDs is, I think, the single most important issue, I think, at this week's meeting, I would like to start with this. And Barak has also mentioned the importance for Africa, so I would like to give you the floor. Maybe just from an ISOC perspective, when we were asked what we think about the extension of the GTLD space, we did say we welcome innovation, we welcome competition, and we hope it will help bring more people onto the internet, especially people who don't have English as a mother tongue, in combination with IDNs, that people who have different scripts as their native language would facilitate their accession to the internet. Now, when you look at the applications, I would say, unfortunately, I would have personally, and I think we can say so also as ISOC, hoped we would get more applications in IDN forms. Yes, there are some, but in percentage, it's not that high as could have been hoped for in terms of leading to more increased diversity. But I think I don't want to preempt you, and obviously GCLDs from developing countries is an issue which we would have hoped that the extension would lead to increased presence on the net. And I do remember when talking with friends, said how nice it would be to have a .masai on the internet or whatever. And this, I think, did not materialize, at least this time around. At least it's sort of a first glance of the application. Many of the applications for IDNs are actually Western-based, who just extend their name, which is great, you know. But we would have hoped it would lead to more bottom-up applications from countries with other languages, other background. Yes, there are some, but over to you, Barak. You raised the issue, please.
Well, I think I posed the question hypothetically, but indeed, it's a big challenge because there are many schools of thoughts out there as to why there is uptake of domains and why there isn't. But of concern is, or rather what I would like to share with, or to ask my colleagues here, is maybe to share experiences in their countries. Because there's an element of pricing which is being talked about in our continent and in a few of the African countries. But I think the biggest problem is getting people to see the value in the domain name industry. And I think the domain name industry in a way shows the development of internet in a particular industry, if you may allow me to say so. So far, uptake of domain remains really low. Uptake, or rather, local content is also really low. And I think our biggest challenge is to try and encourage more of our citizens to bring, or rather to bring the local content to the internet. And it is our hope that this is the only way the so-called new GTLDs will become relevant. So we are in sort of a catch-22, and there are lots of pricing issues being talked about, but I'm not sure if that is really the problem that is affecting us. So maybe our colleagues can be able to share some experiences in that line.
And maybe you should also say, I mean, you're not only the head of the Kenyan chapter, but your professional background is not unrelated to this issue.
Yes, that's right. I work for Africa Top Level Domains Organization. So part of the challenge, or rather part of what I'm looking at, is uptake of domains across the African countries. So far, the highest we have is South Africa with about 800,000 domains. And I can see in Germany, .de is at 14 or 15 million. So I don't know how we can be able to catch up or reach that level, but I know the ideas are in this forum, I believe.
Thank you. Comments, Alejandro?
Spot on. I won't surprise you. This is exactly the point I wanted for us to discuss, and thank you for just bringing us there. There's three aspects here, I think. One of them is the general view of ISOC about the expansion of domain name space, which when I was on the board, and it has continued to evolve, is that like it doesn't look like an essential need of the internet, but we rather see the experiment happen than not see the experiment happen. That was more or less, you know, in plain words, the view. As you mentioned, there's things that some of us may find pretty useless or speculative or short-lived in the proposals, but it's not for us to judge. We're not the ones to judge. But there are some very specific points I think we can pick up here. First is the size issue that Barak has mentioned. There's a Matthew effect. This is some quote from the Bible that says, "To the rich will be given." So once a domain name has a lot of names, it begins to be very attractive. It's not necessarily a network effect, but there's an exponential there. It begins to be interesting not to have your name hijacked, so even defensive registrations become important, whereas other domain names like Salvador.sv, for example, which doesn't have an obvious phonetic or semantic implication, are remaining very small, and companies in the country prefer the .coms and happy with that, or maybe the .cos now. But now that what I think is a substantive point is that ISOC is proposing, well, not ISOC again, PIR is proposing one GTLD, which is .ngo. And we should be very careful what implications that interest has for the rest of the society and at different levels. I would speculate, at least, that trustees and staff are pretty much bound to want for .ngo to be successful. And therefore, it's complicated for trustees or staff to support any other domain name. It's very improbable that it will be proper for staff and the board to not support expansion of the domain name space. They may ask for prudent expansion, but not for no expansion, because that would be like shooting the PR proposal in the foot and having, causing the waste of whatever investment has already been made in creating that proposal. When it comes to ISOC members, chapter leaders or chapter members or individual members, if we're going to do things like participate in the SARP, in the evaluation panel for proposals that have asked for funding, or if some of our chapter leaders are in the ALAC GTLD evaluation board, then I think that we have to be very careful about the implications, whether you are supporting something that is in conflict or competition with .ngo, whether it's completely orthogonal, and whether there's someone who can tell before we get into the next step, which would be a very messy and undesirable step for ISOC, which would be to have any member of ISOC participating in any of these debates and being shut down, being asked to recuse him or herself because of conflict of interest, because of having too many fingers in too many pies. And here, that goes to the heart of ISOC's mission. ISOC's mission, in the way I understand it, is includes a very heavy component of stewardship for the internet, and that of course includes some stewardship for the domain name system, though we know that that's mostly ICANN's field of work, but ISOC cannot just say, well, let ICANN solve it. We have been very careful over the years with IDNs, with the introduction of DNSSEC, with introduction of a fee, of a non-refundable fee for domain name testing, which basically killed a lot of domain name testing and kiting. ISOC has been a very responsible citizen and steward, and we have to be very careful that we don't get someone shut down now from these discussions by ISOC becoming an interested party. So some clarity here would be very welcome. I don't think that we have to achieve it today, but we would be asking Walda and Marcus to be the channels to be able to provide some guidance here.
Well, thank you for these thoughtful remarks. I mean, the .ngo was discussed at the level of the board of ISOC, and there was the blessing was given to PIR to move ahead. And what you said, the way you see ISOC is indeed very much how we see ISOC. We don't interfere into sort of the day-to-day running, but what is our core concern is the stability, security of the internet, keeping the global open nature of the internet. And as I said in my introductory remark, does it actually bring more people onto the internet? Does it help people with other languages? Does it increase diversity? It's really at the very high level principles. And we are aware that due to our special relationships with PIR, we have to be a little bit conservative in the DNS space, and that's very much part of the division of labor we do have with PIR. We talk on general internet governance principles, on general principles, but we definitely feel, as you said, would be inappropriate being involved in evaluation of applications of new domain names. I mean, there is clear conflict of interest, and I think we steer out of that space. Now, what it means for chapters, for the broader ISOC family, that is somewhat trickier questions. I mean, Barak, in his professional capacity, he's in that space. So I think it would be limiting you too much, saying, oh, you cannot say anything, because ISOC has a strong relationship with PIR and they're in the field for .ngo. But I mean, it has to be in the back of your head when there's a policy discussion on that. And yes, you have your professional affiliation, but also you have your ISOC affiliation. And people tend to put 2 and 2 together and make it 5. So it's better to be very clear about that, very upfront. Okay, I'm an ISOC chapter, but here I'm not talking as an ISOC chapter. Here I'm talking as. But I think it's something, as long we have that in our mind, that, and perception sometimes is as important as the facts. People assume, and then the rumors spread, and they put 2 and 2 together and make it not only 5 but 6 or 7. So it's good to be clear and upfront on that and understand that people might have second thoughts and whatever. But I think you want to come in again, Alejandro.
This is very helpful, so, and I would like sort of to make sure that we have a take-home bundle here. I would say very quickly 3 things. One, I already said. I think we should avoid a situation where an ISOC leader or member is expelled from a room or from a discussion, asked to recuse him or herself from a discussion or a vote because they are assumed to be in conflict of interest. We should definitely avoid that as much as possible. Second, that means that it would be useful to have a statement like the one you have made, maybe only or verbally. There will be a record and a recording of this meeting, but sort of expand this further out. I have to note that this is one of the chapter meetings in an ICANN meeting that has had the smallest attendance since we started them. I think we have about half the normal attendance. So we have to make sure that we spread this wisely. It's not just like a dogma. This is what you can do. This is what you cannot do, because there's a fuzzy border there. But to make the thought be present. And number 3 would be to have a go-to person for this issue in ISOC. So whenever someone finds him or herself entangled in an email, forum, discussion list, or physical list, and this becomes a troublesome point, to know whom to ask in ISOC, what would be the guideline to follow.
Okay, thank you. Well, I suppose I would have to assume the responsibility of being the go-to person, and I'm happy to to volunteer to that. No, okay, and it's a good suggestion maybe to be more clear and upfront on this. Actually, I have a breakfast meeting tomorrow with PIR colleagues on updating a little bit our division of labor in the ICANN space. We had a paper some years back, but I mean, the structure of ICANN has changed since, and whatever, so it's basically updating what was always the case. We are not engaged in the plumbing of the DNS space as ISOC. We are interested in the broader principles, and let's think about maybe something on our website, also a positive statement on that could be helpful, that we explain, but and also the guidance to give to avoid any perception of conflict of interest. That's very well taken, and thank you for that. Are there other comments? Jolly has a comment, okay. Yes, please, Jolly.
I'd just like to hear Vinny address this with his earlier suggestion that we get involved in the non-com.
I didn't quite get it, the comment due to audio. Could you kindly repeat it?
I'll say again. I'll say again that Veni, could he talk about this with his earlier suggestion about the non-com?
Oh yes, we come to that. We have not. It's still finishing the GTLD bit on our agenda.
But with,
and we get. Yes, we come to the non-com.
Okay.
But Barak was actually asking for the floor. I think still on the GTLD. Please, Barak.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments my colleague is raising there, but I think we have a mission to the effect that the internet is for everyone, and I think the issue that I consider as a priority at the moment is for users to be able to understand the effect of the new GTLDs or the GTLD on CCTLDs and vice versa. And I think ISOC has been doing really well in educating the masses out there. And that's where we should come in strong, because I don't see ICANN doing very well in terms of clarifying the differences and the effect thereof. So I don't know whether this is the right forum, but I would wish to know if ISOC can take up that challenge in getting the information out there on the effect of new GTLDs on CCTLDs, or how the current environment is going to be affected.
Yes, Alejandro.
Thank you again thanks, Marcus, for opening this very friendly space for discussion, which is what ISOC is about. I think you are just making explicit or creating the opportunity to explain further why I think that we have to have a very clear way of thinking about possible conflicts here. .Africa could pull some registrations away from .org and certainly pull some registrations away from .ngo. That's the point of conflict.
Yes, this is actually a very interesting discussion, but I mean, as ISOC, however much we are interested in the success of .org and .ngo, we are equally interested in the success of .Africa, or in terms of enhancing diversity on the internet. And I think if we have to assess the balance between our interest and... Can you please mute your microphones, the remote participants? I think the benefit of the internet as a whole has to come first. It has to come before our own very legitimate pecuniary interests, and I would be ashamed if it were the other way around. So
I agree with you, and I would like that we would like not to have a zero-sum game.
Yes.
But if it becomes a zero-sum game, then we have to make decisions. If we can expand all the names, we have have beautiful blooming growth for .Africa, and at the same time have the pecuniary basis of ISOC guaranteed, we are very happy. But if not, we have to have planned for that conflict in advance instead of waiting for it to erupt in our faces.
There are quite a few people now who would like to ask, I think, Veni and Walter, but I would also say we don't want to be put into the position where we actually have to make decisions on this, because we take a step back on these issues. But Veni, you asked for the floor, and Walter would like to comment.
Yes, I mean, I actually, Alex, I got a little bit lost, because why suddenly with .Africa? I mean, there are 1,929 more domains. No, but it's not the same problem, because you cannot assume that they will be pulling names from the .org. You could easily say they will be pulling names from .com, and that means that whoever is running .com now should be more concerned about this. And also .org, with regards to ISOC's, actually PIR's rather, we would say, and then by proxy ISOC's budget, is not that big of a problem now. In terms of, actually, it is a bigger problem because there is more money than ISOC can spend. So this is the problem. But I think the discussion goes into a way where I agree with Marcus here, because ISOC's mission and goal is not to protect this little zone so that ISOC can benefit more, but ISOC's goal is to make sure that all the domain namespace and all the IP address allocation is being done in a nice way so that people use more internet rather than keep it to the current level. I mean, we're talking about 4 billion people not yet connected. So we should be thinking about them rather, and if, for example, IDNs will bring 1 billion people online because they don't understand the Latin script, or the scripts which currently are in existence are not enough, that's an issue. And I think ISOC could play a major role, not a major role, but a role in promoting actually just plainly domain name usage, and then people will choose. And also, let's be fair. I mean, if somebody has a .org name and is using it for good, legitimate purposes, what are the chances that they will say, oh, good, I'm not going to use this, I'm going to build a new brand on the new one? I don't think that any one of our chapters, for example, which has registered, say, isoc-bg.org, would say, oh, I'm going to use this new top-level domain for my site. You know, it's building a brand is a very, very long and complicated issue.
Thank you. And Walter would like to talk. But also, basically, Barak raised also a question saying that he feels that ICANN hasn't done enough to explain. But I think this, well, maybe for the agenda of the chapters meeting would be something where chapters can make their voice heard within ICANN, that ICANN should do more to explain. We are not that active for these reasons in the DNS space, and you know, we really think it's the primary responsibility of ICANN to explain what happens there. But that's just a quick reaction to your comment. But I see that quite a, well, we're really getting into a quite lively discussion. Michel? No. Oh, no, you are? You're okay, yes, please. And
Yalvi, thank you. Personally, I don't have a fear that as an ISOC member, our chapter was chartered in 99 in Africa, ISOC Benin. So we are also, I think ISOC also should be promoting the choices for users. So if you have many domains, there is not a fear that people will leave from like .org, that is ISOC, for ISOC to other one. Like if I'm from Africa, for example, in many countries, you can see people, they are not taking the top level domain of the country for the company. Why? Because it's expensive one and the services, and people are taking something different. So I don't, me as an African, it's not because I have Africa tomorrow that necessarily I will go for .Africa. So the question is, I think we ISOC, we have to promote also the choice, to have people getting many choices, so they are free to choose what they want, because we want at ISOC to have internet for everyone. So I think we should just continue as ICANN is doing, promoting ISOC. And coming back to something he said before, if you see the result today, it's like, we can say it's like the domain name industry is something different. So if ICANN open the market today, we want to have new domains. The question is that, are the community, how many communities wanted really the market? So that is the question. So you see people who understand the industry, that are the people who are applying for the new DTLD. So in conclusion, I think we ISOC chapters, most of us are also Atlas structures. We just continue the education, and then people are free to to select the domain they think can help them to achieve what they want to achieve. This is my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's very much the official ISOC opinion. We want to increase the possibility for consumers to choose between different offers to enhance consumers' choice. Victor, you also asked for the floor.
Thank you, Marcus. My comment was just following Yaovi one. So ISOC basic mission is to promote the use and development of the internet, and ISOC is doing the important part of the work concerning developing country like Cameroon, because ISOC is focusing now on development of local content. We are talking about domain name, new GTLD. New GTLD domain name for what? If there is not services or content behind. Maybe in 10 or 20 years, internet user will not used to care about which domain name they are using. They will care about content, how to access the content. Maybe like today, many people don't know, many users locally, sometimes it's a bad habit, but when you ask a local user in Cameroon, Wikipedia, he says, I'm going to Google Wikipedia. He don't care about wikipedia.org or .com or something like that. So I think ISOC is already supporting the expansion and choice of the internet by promoting development of local content. Because in seeing the question from Cameroon, and what ICANN did was by putting in place the joint agreement support to support application from developing economy and countries. I just commented that support by saying we cannot leave a basic step, because the domain name industry is not understanding in Africa, and then we move forward to make more promotion on new GTLD. We have to start with the basics, make the domain name industry be understanding, and then we can put more energy on the new GTLD program. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And actually, mentioned local content. I would like to do some PR for the study we have co-produced with UNESCO and OECD on local content and IXPs, basically proving scientifically with a solid economic analysis that producing local content and keeping the traffic local lowers the cost of access to the internet. There's Olga and Alexei, and I haven't forgotten you one.
Thank you, Marcus. I would like to address the comment made by Alejandro, which I think is relevant. I think that we could perhaps make a concept of the ISOC community in two layers. One, those who are related with the staff, with the organization itself, and board members and people who have direct relationship with the ongoing activities of ISOC. And then the rest of us who are part of the ISOC community but are not directly related. I think that those who are directly related should have that issues in mind that Alejandro was pointing out very well. And for the rest of us, we should have the internet as a whole in mind. And I think that new GTLDs brings a big challenge now that the list is out there, especially in relation with who will manage some generic names that are very much relevant for some communities. Who will manage .Bible or .Islam or .Patagonia, which is a region of my country. So I see us in having a role in saying something in that. And at least for me, Patagonia is something which is important for my country, and it's a trademark as well. So it is a region of South America, should be handled by a company in the States which has a trademark, a registered trademark, or it should be relevant to the community, which involves several millions of people in the south of the world. I think that those kind of reflections could be in the minds of us, we are in the whole community. And of course, the PIR issue should be more focused in the people who are directly related with the organization. That's my comment.
Yes, no, I mean, I try to say very much the same thing. There is a difference between the broader ISOC family and between ISOC staff. But Alexei, please.
We're having a new look within ISOC because we just like watching this organization and how we would promote and use it and why. And the main thing, as we see, is the ISOC could give a floor to anybody who shares our vision and ideas, which is all for good. So for us, this possibility is the great, and if anybody, by definition, wants to promote some ideas which is beneficial, this person or organization could, by definition, get a floor and just join ISOC and basically vocal this idea from behalf of the organizations, which is just perfect bottom-up structure. We don't have such structure in Russia. And what we see from the side by now, we haven't been in the process for a long time, that this is the most like unique and beneficial thing regarding these organizations. And of course, we have a list of like founding members, and all of these people have their interests, but it's fine, and by definition, we cannot reject anybody who will join and will promote new ideas as well. So we see it's the main benefit of the organization to have this opportunity, and that's basically what we want to utilize. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this. And Walder, you've been very patient, but you wanted to come in as well. Microphone.
Actually, in the interest of time, several people have made the points I wanted to make, including yourself, but I wanted to, on some of your comebacks. So I find this very interesting, so I'll take no more time right now.
And it's good to see we agree among ISOC staff. Brings coherence to our action. But I think I share with you the idea. It was been a very interesting and very useful discussion. I mean, these are important issues. Have we exhausted the new GTLDs? I think I see sort of a sense of nodding around the table. Then there were, Alejandro mentioned stability and security, and the other issue was Venice.
He has had to leave, and I will have to chase after him. So.
Okay. Well, basically, I think the point was well taken and supported by Irio on the NOMCOM, and also Jolly asked for an update on IANA. So we have, depending on, well, as Jolly wants to watch the football, maybe we start with his agenda. An update on IANA, I don't think there's really that much to say. As far as I understand, the contract will be issued. There's no major surprise. There is not, I feel, a general enthusiasm within the community for the extension of the contract as it is, as it more or less is on the same basis, and the community had hoped, based on the affirmation of commitment, that maybe the US would take a little bit more of a step back, but this will not happen this time round. So let's hope there will be another time round, and that the affirmation of commitment will be revitalized. And it was an important step forward, let's face it, but I think more needs to be made out of it. I don't know whether anybody else has anything to add to or questions asked, but I'm not the source of wisdom here. I'm not in the secret of the gods. All I hear is that general wisdom is that it will be extended. Does anybody know more, can add anything? Doesn't seem to be the case. Shall we take the NOMCOM first? I think there's really, again, this is maybe also an agenda item that could be followed up on the Tuesday meeting, the role of chapters. I mean, the idea is good, to make better use of the chapters in influencing the NOMCOM process. Irio, would you have anything to add on that?
Thank you. Thank you, Markus. Well, actually, anybody can suggest candidates to the NOMCOM. So anybody can do it as just an individual or any organization. But of course, it would be in a way natural that ISOC chapters who follow these things could use that possibility also. And as I said, I mean, after these 2 terms on the NOMCOM, I think that we really depend on these suggestions, either people suggesting themselves, making this statement of interest, or other people doing it for them. But I mean, whatever it is, when we come together and start selecting board members and members of the various SO councils, we are restricted to those names. And that's, of course, the more names we have at the disposal, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Can we put that on Tuesday agenda, how to make best possible use of chapters? And it's not just, I mean, it's a NOMCOM when you talk now about ISOC at ICANN, but there are other areas as well. I'm just thinking, you know, the selection of MAG members, for instance, is similar, where you can, and it's not just of applying yourself, it's also of thinking of other people and motivating them. Would you be ready to stand as a candidate? And usually it means a lot of non-paid work, let's face it. You know, it's one thing to have the name and go to meeting, but it does mean work, and you know, people need to be motivated. But let's put that on Tuesday's agenda as well, and how to, you know, enhance the chapter's participation, efficiency, whatever, in the work of the good for the broader community, be that through, as Siv has mentioned, basically promoting the internet ecosystem, but also finding people who are willing actually to work for the good of the community. That would leave us then with a very easy agenda item, stability and security. Alejandro, would you please introduce it?
Thank you, Markus. I will first go one step back to the reason we started these meetings, and you have led them very effectively for some time now, is that we found that sometime that ISOC chapters were coming into ICANN meetings with positions that were not aligned, were actually quite opposite, which is perfectly fine in the diversity. But sometimes we ended up having mixed messages from ISOC, uncoordinated messages from ISOC, and even, you know, totally opposed positions, which you know, ISOC would have to make a choice. And in some cases also it was just, you know, lack of enough information internally or shared, but it's not the interest only of sharing information, but actually to help the society as a whole, help the internet society as a whole be present and effective in the ICANN space, of which it is a steward. I would like to insist on this aspect. I mean, ISOC was very importantly instrumental in creating ICANN. It has been important in shaping ICANN. It has been important in shaping things that are decided in ICANN, and we wanted to stay that way. So this is not only a discussion, but it was always meant as a coordination meeting, so that we could, within the diversity that each chapter still has to have, at least act in a way that is informed by the general goals of the society and the other chapters. That said, in particular for the stability, security, and resilience of the DNS issues, I think that this week gives us a very good opportunity for ISOC chapters to become engaged in ICANN work. This in part relates to work I have done and led during the last months, and in part to more general work in ICANN. As many of you know, I had the honor to chair the Stability, Security, and Resilience Review team mandated by the Affirmation of Commitments. That's a very important piece of work, not for myself, but for this environment, because that is where the multi-stakeholder environment is going in Internet governance. It's a very important piece because this replaces the checklist that the United States government used to measure the advance of ICANN in its contract with the US government. Now this instrument does not report to the US government. It reports to the community through ICANN and to the GAC. So government oversight is guaranteed, but in a balanced multi-stakeholder way. That's the very important significance of all the reviews, like the Accountability and Transparency Review, the WHOIS review, this security review, and one more that is out there. Now, ICANN has already started consultations on some of the recommendations we made on the review. They said, this is in the draft, but it is important, and we have already started consultations. They have started consultations on the stability and security plans, the budget, and they put out a paper with a definition of the reviews of stability, security, and resilience of the Internet and of the DNS and what ICANN should be doing there. That's one important piece to go to the consultations. That's a general consultation. It's going on, and it's mostly by email, papers, and so forth. Second, tomorrow at 2 p.m., we have a general community meeting to present the review, which everybody is cordially invited to. And third, Thursday, starting I think at 8 a.m., there's a series of meetings related to stability, security, and resilience. The first one is a meeting of the ISOC, the Official Security and Stability Advisory Committee of ICANN. The second one, if I remember well the order, is the DSSA, which is a community multi-stakeholder group for identifying the threats to the DNS and categorizing them. And the third one is a discussion with the board working group that is doing the more general task that we see as a forward-looking task, which is establishing a framework for risk analysis of the DNS, from which everybody related to ICANN and the DNS can define their own work and know what has to be done to manage risks to the DNS. So I would encourage everybody's attendance, and that we maybe pick up some of these tasks for groups of ISOC chapters, because it will allow us to give a lot of education to our members, a lot of education among the chapters, and I think that's a valuable thing. And also, since many ISOC chapters are ALAC structures, better informed ISOC chapters will help shape these things without violating our general agreement that ISOC as a whole does not participate in the ALAC, does not determine what we do in the ALAC. Each chapter participates individually, but we want to participate in a way that still is coordinated. Thank you.
Thank you for this. These are very important issues you raised, and also thank you for reminding us of why actually we're having these meetings. Clearly there is merit in having this type of loose coordination, as I would put it, or exchange of information. At least, we don't need to. Yes, we don't need to agree on everything in advance, but at least we know, and there were no surprises. That's the key word. But this actually brings me to another point. Here, this is not a chapters meeting. This is ISOC at ICANN. But I think we see here mainly chapter representatives. And we have a separate meeting with the advisory council on Friday, and should we not try, at least aim to have everybody together right, before the ICANN meeting starts? Because some of the org members may have different point of view. That's fine, but at least precisely to put issues on the table and see where we stand, and again avoid surprises. It's that we know where we are in the family. But I see, yes, Sebastian and Barak.
Yes, thank you, Marcus, to bring that. I guess this meeting was never intended to be a chapter member only. It was supposed to ISOC with ICANN, and ISOC, it's ISOC, the full ISOC. It's not just one part or the other. It was supposed to be open for member of chapter, for individual members, for org member, and for the staff. And it may be because the publication or the communication around it's not exactly like that, or that we are indeed in this situation. But it's really important because I think what Alessandro say about the security and stability would be very interesting for org member, for other members. And what I will say again, that I would like each in this room to say what is important for them during this week and where they are involved. And like that, if we have a question about something happening where we are not participating and we need an information, for example, we are ready to exchange, we know who is doing what and where. And that was one of the aim of this meeting. It was to know from the ISOC participant where they are involved, what they are doing, what are the main concern, and how they can get help, or how they can help the other. And if I can later come back, I would like to talk about public participation. Thank you.
Thank you. No, you're perfectly right. This is not supposed to be a chapter meeting. It's supposed for the whole ISOC family within ICANN. But when you look around the table, it does seem to be the case that our org members are not present. And maybe we have to rethink on how to make it more attractive, or make sure that we all actually sit together. But Alexei, you asked for the
yeah, among two major points which will pursue Russian chapter will be security and stability and access. So all what Alejandro just says, it's really interested for us, and so we'll be dig on it. Thank you.
And my apologies to Barak. I jumped you. You were in the queue first. Please, Barak.
No, thank you, Marcus. I think for me, one other issue I would emphasize on is creating frameworks that prepare our members to participate in these ICANN meetings. Because when I look at the Kenyan chapter, for instance, we have members of the GAC, we have members from the non-commercial constituency, and it's almost impossible to agree on what we would call the ISOC position. But the most we can do is prepare the respective members to be effective in the constituencies that they are participating in, of course, with the objective of promoting the internet for all, as we were saying. Secondly, I think the same case would apply for security and stability. One of the biggest challenges or rather have faced in the chapter is non-technical members saying, why is it that the techies are carrying the show? Is ISOC for techies, or is it also for non-techies? And well, again, it's in the kind of frameworks that we will create so that those who are not security gurus or geeks do not feel left out in this conversation. So, and as I talk about that, I'm thinking of the Diplo program, or better still, ISOC has the Next Generation Leaders program, a way of educating the members so that they can make a decision on where they want to participate. So those will be my comments.
Thank you. Yes, that was, I think, one of the comments from one of the remote participants, that we should give more guidance on what the issues are, the meetings they should participate in the week. But what you said, Parag, was it resonates very strongly with me, and I think that's why I feel very happy to work for ISOC. We have a very broad roof, and we have all different tendencies under this roof, but we all share some common values, and that is to work together for the good of the internet. We may have different points of view on the way to get there, but we do share some common values and principles, and I think that's where we find each other as a family. But I think Sivas wanted to come in as well, and Walder would like to make some comments.
Since this meeting in this model is so successful in aligning chapters' views to ISOC, why don't we think of monthly meetings of chapters online to talk about all issues, not only about ISOC issues, but about all issues, and make it a convention that all chapter leaders attend that meetings, and we give them a very clear picture of the real issues that ISOC is working on. I'm proposing this as a person to whom education of internet issues meant a lot. I was a completely uneducated person on internet issues, and was proposing the wrong things when I started. And Alejandro particularly and Olivier, they've taught me so much, and with that I gained a lot of understanding, and that understanding has to be there with every chapter member. And I'm making this remark in the ISOC participation in ICANN meeting, though it is beyond that.
This, I think, could be an agenda item again for the Tuesday meeting. Walder wanted to come in on that, please.
First of all, I just want you to know that I'm taking these very good suggestions on board. Our chapters group is really looking for ways to be more helpful and to make it easier for all of you to engage, decide where you want to engage and know how to do it. And so, yes, we can raise that again, but even if not, this is something that I'm taking on board and taking back. I just wanted to note the question of why there may not be org members here, and whether we might have an elevated success of doing it some other way. Yes, they do know, but their engagement here, as you probably know, has many faces, and some of them are commercial faces. So there are a lot of activities going on with the companies this evening too. In general, when we've tried to bring together org members, we've of course looked to them and what works for them. And both here and at the IETF meetings, we have found that it works best for them if we meet directly after all of the ICANN meetings are officially finished, or after all the IETF meetings are officially finished. So it's not an accident of fate that the AC Advisory Council is going to be Friday morning. We'll continue to make maybe even do a better job of letting everyone know in advance that this meeting takes place. But we'll see what results that produces.
Thank you. There's merit in having a preparatory meeting. There's merit in having a taking stock meeting. But I think there would be a merit of having the whole ISOC family together, meeting. I mean, you know, as I say, out of the box thinking, blue sky approach. Let's basically see what works best for everybody concerned. I don't think anybody around this table questions the need to have this meeting. It's just a question of maximizing the benefits of the opportunities, make sure everybody gets the best out of it. I think we had personally I've had a very interesting and stimulating and a thought-provoking discussion. I think we can build on that. Yes, we can assess what is the best way to organize it in the future. Maybe the conclusion will be don't change anything. This may, for various reasons, maybe the best way forward. There is merit in having this meeting before the ICANN meeting proper starts, that we exchange notes, share our views. It would be definitely more interesting also to have the org members around the table. So this is a question we can ask at the Friday meeting when we have the meeting with the org members. We can discuss it further with the chapter meeting on how to enhance the role of the chapters. But I personally, I'm open to any suggestions. I think as long as we agree that we want to get the best out of it. And that's what I feel is very much the feeling around this table, that we think that it is merit in having this kind of meeting, and let's just see how we can maximize the benefits and the impact. We do have to be clear there are certain constraints. I think we don't want to jump in as ISOC into what we would consider ICANN activities and responsibilities. I mean, outreach to developing countries for new GTLDs, this is not ISOC's job. This is ICANN's job. Now, we can discuss how, if you have other ideas how ICANN should do this, we can discuss this, but that should be taken up then within the ICANN context. Same thing about, how to improve ISOC's present, or how to improve the quality of nominees for the various ICANN positions. This is something clearly worthwhile discussing. Within our networks, we do have good contacts, and one of my pet subjects, so to speak, is the importance of improving the presence of developing countries. I'm happy to see around this table we have a fairly balanced crowd. There's a fairly diverse. Nobody can accuse us of being just sort of North American or European. We have a strong contingent from Africa. Japan is present. Asia Pacific. So this is really something which is important to us as ISOC. So if we can work as ISOC to improve diversity within ICANN, let's do it. And I think we as ISOC, we are committed to do that. It is extremely important to give ownership of the internet to people in developing countries. And when I say people, I mean people, not just governments, but all stakeholders. But the important thing is to have people there, chapters, who can then also talk to their governments, who say that they are comfortable with the arrangements in place, and it is our firm belief that the current internet governance arrangements are best suited to the internet, to its technical architecture, which is, as we all know, bottom-up, distributed, and we have bottom-up, collaborative, and distributed governance arrangements. So and that's basically what Sivas suggested. Let's discuss how best we can actually bring that into the government debate. But the key is we have to increase participation of developing countries in all these governance arrangements, and you are our best allies in helping us to do so. And if you can, obviously there's always room for improvement on how we can increase our effectiveness and efficiency, and this is something we can discuss at our chapters meeting. I don't know, we have, I think, about 5 minutes left, but I don't think, we have gone through our agenda, and as I said, I think it was a good meeting, it was an interesting meeting, and yes, I'm asking for last comments, and Sebastian has one. Please, Sebastian.
Yeah, I wanted to raise one meeting this week with where I'm more involved, but I think it could be interesting to have input from the participants here. It's the public participation committee of the board who get a public session, and it's the only board committee who get public session with input from the public. Of course, it's a public participation. That's quite normal, but in my ideas, there could be other board committee who could have a public session. And the two items will be the question around the public comment period process, because we get a lot of, we try something and we get a lot of inputs, and we would like to have in face-to-face discussion. And the second, which is important, also it's all the services around language, translation, interpretation, and so on and so forth. And one of the reasons I really would like to have also your input in this meeting is that as a chapter, you participate to online discussion, you participate to using WebEx tools to different conferences. There is what Jolie is doing for a lot of meetings around the world, and I think we could learn from both organizations how to deal better with all those tools. And the meeting is on Tuesday, the 28th, from 9 to 10:30. Thank you. It was an announcement and marketing from the chair of the PPC. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. No, it is an important issue. And when we come to commercials, there may be other people who may have commercials. I would, tomorrow afternoon, I think it's 1:30, there will be a workshop on the broader internet governance landscape, which responds directly to one of the issues raised by SIVAS. It's basically raising awareness of what the various discussions happening from enhanced cooperation to WICID. There will also be a workshop, I think, on Thursday on WICID, Thursday morning. I don't have the exact times in my head. I've been approached on that. So it's always important to be informed about the broader issues. ICANN is an important organization and an important big piece in the puzzle of internet governance, but there are broader issues around. We have this Dubai conference on the World Conference on International Telecommunication, known as WICID. We will discuss, there's enhanced cooperation, there's the Internet Governance Forum, there will be the World Telecom Policy Forum next year, there will be the plenipotentiary. So it's always good to have these broader issues in mind and not look at ICANN in isolation. ICANN is a crucial element in this, and it's absolutely vital that ICANN functions and functions well, because if ICANN does not function well, then there are those in the background who would like to shift the responsibility over this space into other governance structures. So this is important. Are there any other commercials for meetings? Sivas, Irio?
It is not actually a commercial. It is quite relevant to what you said just now. You were talking about the good intentions to involve developing countries more and more, and you even said we want to give ownership to developing countries, but it is perceived in a totally different way from what I have seen. I had a conversation with someone from government. Let me say that I met him on a plane, so I don't want to get into specifics. And my understanding was that I brought up the topic of India's proposals to UN, and one thing was clear was that India does not, or at least the educated people in Indian government do not believe that ITU is an alternative. But at the same time, I could notice some concerns. One was one was a question that I probably have to take inputs from you to give a clear answer. And one concern was, what can we do if there is a cyber attack by some other country on India? Who do we go to? Do we go to ICANN? And while that point was mentioned, I could also notice that they were unhappy about ICANN, the way ICANN works. What I want to ask you is, what is it that ISOC chapters could do to instill confidence in our governments that the internet community, that the multi-stakeholder community is fair, is supportive, and it is the way to go? What can we do? And what kind of an answer do I give to some specific concerns? There are some concerns which, rather than being expressed as concerns, surface in a negative way as proposals. And so that also I made it clear that instead of proposals, we could seek answers. And I'm now seeking answers from you.
Thank you. It's a big question, and it's a very thoughtful question. And we do recognize that there are legitimate concerns on all these issues, and we may not have the fully fledged answer to them, to these concerns. And it clearly merits another discussion, and I think it's well on the agenda of the Tuesday meeting. As I said, there aren't easy answers to difficult questions. I don't know whether you have read, there was an article in The Economist a couple of weeks back on the GTLD expansion, and they were not at all enthusiastic. And The Economist, on the whole, has very much supported the private sector-led management of internet resources. And they were actually quite derogatory about ICANN handling the process. How can we sort of trust an organization that cannot even do this or that? But then their conclusion was, but the alternative would be much worse. And that's, I think, we do strongly believe in the ICANN model. We do accept there may be criticism on the details. No human endeavor is ever perfect, but the alternatives definitely will be much worse. And ICANN is a very young organization when you look in terms of human history. They were set up in 1998, and that's very young. And the achievements have been tremendous, and the GTLD, I just discussed it with colleagues from the NCUC. They sort of feel, they're bullied around and pushed around in the ICANN context by the business people. I said, well, hang on, their voice was heard by the board. They did not listen just to governments. The final decision was finally calibrated, and not all the proposals put forward by governments were taken on board, but the board actually listened to the ALAC proposals and moved a little bit more towards their side. And in terms of a governance model, I think this is quite extraordinary. So, you know, let's look at the positive sides and the achievements, and the bottom line is the internet works. And would we have the internet had it been done in another way? Anyway, Irio, Fuad, and I think we have to, and Olga, but we have to, Olivier as well.
Thank you.
Hi, Olivier.
Thank you, Marcus. Just briefly, I would like to thank ISOC for the good work done by Sally Wentworth in providing those ISOC chapters who are trying to influence the national preparation process for the ITU meeting in Dubai, WCIT or VICT. They are very good tools. I mean, she's able to translate and synthesize those awful ITU documents into something understandable, which we can use. And by the same token, I would suggest that perhaps at the chapters meeting, we could talk about the role, I mean, the possibilities of national chapters to actually to force their way into the national preparations for the ITU meeting. Thank you.
That's on the agenda, thank you. And it's not just Sally, it's also Karen Mulberry, who works with Sally very closely on these projects. Fuad?
Thank you, Marcus. Fawad Bajwa from ISOC Chapters Information in Pakistan. I'm going to sort of step into a totally different area. I guess I'm out of the IGF, so I have more time to think about these things. There's something you mentioned, a relatively young organization, but a series of very strong accomplishments. And presently in 2012, massive innovation over the namespace. Amazing issues that we've witnessed in the past 1.5 years, like world democracy changing kind of situations, and internet's role and impact in that. Within that context, okay, we will have this gap continuously about ICANN's understanding and how governments understand ICANN. There is something much broader than that as well, which is, for example, if I would just take, I come from Pakistan, I come from a Muslim state. You must have seen in global politics how Muslim states get together and they have standings on human rights and other issues. And of course, you've been in the whole UN process. You've seen where the UDH, where the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights stands and where the Middle East stands on that. That is how the internet issues are in our part of the world. I would support what Yuri just said, but the situation is different in our part of the world. That is why sometimes a different strategy has to be adopted. Recent months, in Pakistan, we saw the ITU chief visit. There were no clear statements on why they were visiting. Pakistan's tensions with the US, in other terms, but an grand opportunity for Russia and China. They were there. So if you look at the landscape of politics, what's happening is the issues which actually get discussed are science and technology and the internet. And that's where there's a new phase that internet society should also add, which is sort of, it may be a bit of diplomatic, but then ISOC should also start visiting countries as delegations, meet with the top brass, have a discussion with them. Eric Schmitz, Google CEO, just visited last week Pakistan. And his main agenda was, he had a very interesting agenda. Number one, he was talking about freedom of expression and the upholding freedom of expression on the internet in Pakistan. Why, I will tell you later. Number two, the then Prime Minister, who's just been sacked, proposed to have a surveillance system between border systems using the internet. That is using the Google Light satellite network, the Google satellite network, to actually implement surveillance, which is against the freedom of movement, which becomes a human rights issue. Maybe he might have caught him in his shoes while having that discussion. The third issue, why this trip? Censorship has not been brought on as a most important principle in Internet's principles of keeping the Internet open. There's no custodian or guardian of the word censorship, against censorship. And that's what the challenge I feel after Frank Lau's report from last year is, that nobody has seriously become a custodian to help protect that, especially from within the Internet community. And that is a challenge which is continuously being posed upon us, whether it's in a context of maybe protecting Muslim states from religious content, or maybe it's an issue of against pornographic material because of social values. But these are blanket controls. These are many of these countries have democracies. Many of them have monarchies. And they will, at certain points in time, due to the situation in those countries, implement a blanket control. And you will witness that soon in many countries. So that is the challenge which I see an important area. Because the capacity gaps in these regions, all from Africa down to like Asian Pacific Muslim countries, is huge. And no one realizes that they follow by example. Pakistan shuts down Facebook, it reopens it, but it's a good example. Bangladesh does the same thing. So this, whether we do it together, whether we start forming this activity whereby we do visit, we have to go to the grassroots in terms of like international diplomatic grassroots, and we have to start talking. Because corporations in the US are coming down to Pakistan and talking about what do you want us to say in terms of ITRs. So there's a capacity building gap even within the US with corporations on these countries. Now they're coming directly to us because they don't know what is it that they want. So there's a clear gap between the governments and the stances to be taken. This is just like the IPv6 business case. As an individual, what does IPv6 do for me? As a small company, what does it do? As a non-profit organization, what do? We don't have those. Same case is happening over here. Do you know that behind Pakistan, the Organization of Islamic Countries, Pakistan can influence all those in one standing in the ITRs. No one has come to those discussions. So that maybe we should have a bit of more meetings, whether remote, but we should pick up this issue about censorship and take it to a totally new level in terms of our global strategy, as well as how we chapters can intervene. But again, there's something to be done at the top level. Thank you.
Yeah, this, I think you opened up a new whole dimension. I mean, we are engaged on these issues, but I mean, how many more minutes do we have? I think we really ought to come to a close. We have
I think 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I think Olivier wanted to come in, please.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Olivier Crépin-Lablon from the English chapter. Wow, I don't know how to follow up with the trivial matter I want to announce. After these deep words from my friend Fawad, that's something I'll have to think of, and I think we'll all have to think of for a while. I just wanted to make an announcement, a cheap commercial break, actually, for tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon at 1600, we are celebrating the 10 years of ALAC, the At-Large Advisory Committee, which was formalized in a board decision in 2002, at the end of 2002. So I invite all of you, and I know that several of you are part of ISOC chapters who are at-large structures, and therefore bringing the end-user point of view into the ICANN processes. And through the formalized ALAC, the regional at-large organizations, we've been going from strength to strength. And so this whole celebration will come back to some of the hard times that the at-large community and ALAC has had to go through to reach today, but also some of the successes as well. And I'd like to invite you, Marcus, Valda, Jacek, Kevin, and I don't know if anyone else from ISOC is there, to the place. Grand Ballroom, 1600 to, I think it's about 1900, but we'll probably all drop dead before the end because it's a long one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, I received the invitation. I put it on my agenda. Olga, you had a last comment?
Very, very, very brief, and congratulations to the ALAC for their great achievement. And the first RALO to sign was the Latin American one. Yes, and I've been trying, and I want your help, to in this. I've been trying to contact the people who's organizing the training in Spanish, and I want to offer the help of our chapters because we have been totally ignored, and we want to moderate, to help without compensation, I mean, on a pro bono basis. And I cannot recall how can I reach to the people that tell me how is that organized. I did send several emails, believe me, and I got, thank you. Because training in Spanish is scarce, especially online, and I think that we have a lot of specialized people that can help. Thank you, and thank you very much for this meeting. I think it was very good.
Thank you, Olga. So I take it there's no further ask for a floor. With this, I would like to thank you all for participating. Really, once again, I think it was a very interesting, very good meeting. And with that, I would like to conclude the meeting and invite you to join with the rest of the buffet and the desserts and continue the discussions. Thank you.
And thank you, those of you online. And Jolie, if you're not watching the game now, you're free to do so. Thanks, bye.